Welcome to Oz, welcome to Oz, welcome to Oz, welcome to Oz. After watching this show, that line's going to be forever etched in your goddamn skull, even if your brain has totally turned to powder. Much like any creative mind that put this show together. I'm John Recton with the retro review of WCW Superbrawl 1991, aka Superbrawl 1. Boy, this is a show's just on a goddamn pendulum, back and forth and up and down and all around, and come on, defense work. But hey, at least we got Kevin Nash as Oz. That was great. Further proof that not all of Dusty's ideas were, well, fantastic. In fact, that somehow was not the worst idea he had in 1991. The Chamber of Horrors at Halloween Havoc 1991. That was far worse. Whew. Goddamn, 1991 was a bit of a weird year for WCW. This has also marked the last pay-per-view appearance for Ric Flair in WCW until mid-93. Because, well, Jim fucking Herd, that goddamn piece of shit, decided to run off Ric Flair. He cut off his hair and wanted him to put on an earring and become a gladiator called Spartacus. Spartacus. Now, I don't know how much Jim Herd really wanted to do something like that, but he didn't like Ric Flair for whatever reason. So many talents have been run off from the time that he took over the company. Ricky Steamboat wasn't in the company for all that long. The Road Warriors had left a year prior. A whole bunch of stuff was going on. This came out on May 19th, 1991, and Ric Flair would have one more appearance, I believe, at the Clash of Champions in June. And then we would get to the Great American Bash 1991. We want Flair. We want Flair. We want Flair. But no, they went with Lex Luger as world champion. Which might have worked if Luger was actually ready for it. But anyway, they're in the Bayfront Center in St. Petersburg, Florida. 6,000 fans, and considering you could look at the capacity limits for that particular venue and see concerts could hold about 8,600 people with the stage and with the obstructed seats taken away. It looks like they got a decent house, though. You could see multiple times. Either people got tickets and didn't show up, or they just did crowd shots where numerous people were at the concession stand or the merch stand during this very, very long, arduous, just goddamn this show. It had some good moments. It had some pretty good matches. But WCW had no fucking life to them at this point. It was incredible. So anyway, somebody named Randy or Brandy Brown sung the national anthem. Then the master tape got messed up because, you know, it did the old thing, you know, the VHS does when it messes up and loops wrong. If you don't know what VHS tapes are, I fucking hate you, and you are too young to be watching this channel, bro. I kid. The dark match, by the way, was Mighty Thor versus El Cubano, and JR and Dusty Rhodes were on commentary. Gary Michael Capetta, the world's most dangerous wrestling announcer, was, well, the wrestling announcer. Otherwise, it would have been weird if he was called anything other than the world's most dangerous wrestling announcer if he wasn't the wrestling announcer. That's how nicknames work. I like Gary Michael Capetta, though. Has a good show, good insight, and worked a lot, you know, worked for many, many years in a few companies. Great ring announcer. Dusty Rhodes, for as great of a talker as he was, his talking never really translated to commentary. It's like it just, at times, he would offer some good insight, and then he would just go off on continuous Dustyisms. Oh, well, whatever. So, anyway, they did have a, you know, the big stage and everything. They had a little spinny deal. The little stand you could, you know, or a little stage you could stand on and rotate around and everything and do like this and, yes, we'll do this. So, the Freebirds, in quotations, Hayes and Garvin take, with DDP and Oliver Humperdinck and some woman that was in leather with a lot of hair, took on the Young Pistols, Tracy Smothers, the late Tracy Smothers, and Steve Armstrong. Vacant U.S. Tag Team Championship match. The titles were vacant because the Steiner brothers had to vacate them after winning the World Tag Team Championships. Can't be double tag team champions, apparently. At least you couldn't back then. Or you could, depending on the company. Whatever. I digress. DDP was on the mic for the intro, and it wasn't bad. The crowd cheered the Pistols. Hayes was never good in the ring. In fact, I would argue that Hayes pretty much sucked in the ring. But he was a great talker and could generate a whole lot of heat and a whole lot of reaction to get a lot of people pissed off. There was a messy finish with a ref bump. And then somebody runs down. Fantasia runs down in all... like... Fantasia, some guy, it's like the Bad Street thing. Remember when Bad Street was around and it was, I believe, one of the Armstrongs? So, I don't know who the hell it actually was. I don't remember who Fantasia was. I'm not talking about the Disney movie. 2 tornado DDTs while the referee was seemingly down for a goddamn nap. And then Hayes covers 1, 2, 3. So they're new U.S. Tag Team Champions. And Dangerous Dan Spivey, the master of the powerbomb, taking on Ricky Morton. Who in God's name, or who the fuck did Ricky Morton piss off to be fed to Dan fucking Spivey in 1991? Who was booking this? Oh, Dusty was booking this. That makes sense. At least I believe Dusty was booking at this point. Spivey hits a powerbomb for 3 in about 3 minutes. And Shivani is on the stage with Missy Hyatt and the Z-Man, Tom Zenk. They were desperate to feature Tom Zenk as any kind of top guy when, no offense, and I hate to speak ill of the dead, but he was a good tag team guy. He was not a good singles guy. He didn't have a dynamic personality. Had a dynamic mullet, and that was it. So, we then see recaps of Stan Hansen torturing and traumatizing Missy Hyatt when she tried to interview guys in the locker room. And then Nikita Koloff took on Tommy Rich. Tommy Rich was on a pay-per-view in 1991, further proving that Jim Herd had no fucking idea what he was goddamn doing. Russian sick on about 4 minutes. Tommy Rich looked like he was he looked like he'd lost some weight, but he lost so much mobility because of various things that he had done. And Nikita Koloff got the victory. And then Giovanni introduces Johnny B. Bad and Theodore R. Long. You know, it's amazing the career that Mark Merrill had, despite the fact that they gave him a gimmick like Johnny B. Bad. And look, he invested himself in it. Mark Merrill was a decent talent. He was a pretty good mid-card guy. Johnny B. Bad, while it was probably the most famous that he was, did kind of stunt his growth being taken seriously. But he also had some pretty damn good matches, especially a series matches with DDP over the TV Championship years later. He was also miscast as a heel because people wanted to cheer him. Dustin Rhodes then took on Terrence Taylor with Alexandra York and Mr. Hughes. The York Foundation proudly presents the York Foundation this week on Dallas. Listen to the Dallas theme and listen to the York Foundation theme. I'm not saying they're exactly similar. I'm just saying that WCW could have got a copyright strike. Finally, something decent. Taylor never escaped the Red Rooster gimmick is what I noted. It wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. There was a distraction. Hughes accidentally hits Taylor with a loaded black glove, and Dustin covers 1, 2, 3. A lot of interference, a lot of ref bumps, a lot of making the referees look stupid here. This wasn't terrible compared to other matches, like Black Bart versus Big Josh. Big Josh had 2 bears with him. I wonder if they were underage bears. If you know anything about Matt Bourne, you know. I don't know why they felt the need to have 2 bears there in Florida. Bit dangerous. They could have had a feast with some of the people in the crowd and probably gotten really full before they finished the bodies, if you know what I mean. Who booked this? Good Lord. Big Josh hits some kind of weird... He lunges his taint at him, his big lumberjack taint, and gets the victory. Good. They thought Black Bart on a pay-per-view in 1991 would actually move the needle. It did. Downwards. Nothing against Black Bart. If he's dead, I feel bad. If he's alive, I feel bad. But, oh, God damn it. The Danger Zone with Paulie Dangerously, because we need to call Kenny Loggins because we are in the Danger Zone. He interviews Stan Hansen. And, because Paulie Dangerously, a.k.a. Paul Heyman, just in case, you know, you're not that much of a long-time fan. He was in a cowboy hat, pink shirt, and khaki shorts, dressed like a cowboy. Stan Hansen had so much tobacco chew coming out of his mouth, so much. It was like a third head. And he only had 1 head, so imagine how big that goddamn thing had to be. He wants to fight Dustin. This was shit. And I like Stan Hansen. Stan Hansen's one of the biggest draws, especially as far as American talents in Japan. And I love what he did with the AWA Championship. Because Vern Gagne fucking deserved that. Whew. So then we're heading straight for the castle. And somebody's going to make them the queen. Except there's just an old man, but it's Kevin Sullivan, and he's taking Dorothy, the Cowardly Lion, and the Tin Man, plus the Scarecrow, straight to the castle. Okay, maybe I shouldn't try to do those song references, but I'm going to keep doing them. Whole point is, Oz, walking to Oz, walking to Oz, walking to Oz, walking to Oz. It's the Great Wizard. And a stupid voiceover. This is, I believe, because Turner had just gotten the rights to broadcast The Wizard of Oz on Turner Network. Or something. Wizard of Oz is one of the most iconic movies as far as, like, just well-known, name value. Judy Garland. Read up how Judy Garland was treated by studio execs, and it's fucking ridiculous. Hollywood can be a goddamn dumpster fire. But they decided this was a good idea. This is an idea from Dusty. Dusty really thought that putting Kevin Nash, former Master Blaster, and the Master Blasters was a bad idea, putting him in genie pants, an old man wig with a wizard hat, or the Oz hat, or whatever it was, and walking down with a giant cape, and pyro and everything and all this, and a curtain backdrop of the castle, was a great idea. And this voice narration, this big production. And they kept pumping up the volume. You know why? Because when they turned off the volume, or when they turned off the music, nobody cared. Kevin Nash took that off. He's trying to look intimidating. Kevin Nash had gray hair here, colored gray, years before he would develop gray hair. And it's a fucking miracle, I wrote down, that Kevin Nash ever made any money in wrestling. And I'm not saying because he didn't have the ability to do it, but think about the gimmicks that he got. Vinny Vegas was the best thing he got in WCW during this first run. Vinny Vegas. I just, like, God damn it, what the fuck was this? Oh, Jesus. And Kevin Sullivan being the Great Wizard and all this, and just fucking terrible. This was a squash match on pay-per-view. This entrance, this whole production, was longer than a couple of the matches put together. I think it was longer than Dan Spivey versus Ricky Morton and Nikita Koloff versus Tommy Rich put together. That's saying something. And then a guy named Tim Parker, nothing against him, he got squashed in 26 seconds and nobody cared. No one cared. Nash was done. I think Oz, lost the next pay-per-view match that he had, which I think was Great American Bash 1991. He was toast by then. Because it was a stupid gimmick, and Dusty coming up with this grand idea, if you will, to take him to the pay window today. He thought that was a terrible Dusty impression, I'm sorry. He thought this was a great idea, and it wasn't. So Missy Hyatt's back to interview guys in the men's locker room, as opposed to guys in the women's locker room. And speaking of guys that would have been in the women's locker room, Terry Taylor's there, or Terrence Taylor, if you know, you know. She wants to go in the shower to interview Tom Zank, but then Stan Hansen's there. Somehow in boxer shorts. And yells at her and spanks her. I wonder why they treated Missy Hyatt this way. I really do wonder that. So Barry Windham took on Brian Pillman in a taped fist match, and boy, these guys had their fists taped and ready to fist constantly. Nobody got their pushes halted more than Brian Pillman in WCW. It's actually a fucking miracle that he lasted as long as he did there. I mean, he had the passion for it. Barry Windham and Pillman, fisted each other constantly, and they both bled. And then there was a superplex for 3. Beautiful superplex. Barry Windham naturally gifted. This was decent enough. And then there you go. The fisting continued because Barry Windham was going to continue the fisting until morale improved. Then DDP was with 2 biker, hooker. I don't know who these women were. I don't know who the hell they were. I just know there was so much late 80s, early 90s hair going on in this segment. I'm amazed we didn't have to cut to a wide shot. We didn't have to cut away 10 feet just to fit it in there. Talks about the tag title match coming up. We cut to a video package. Here's the Diamond Stud, by the way, a.k.a. Scott Hall, a.k.a. the future Razor Ramon. Can't figure out where the Razor Ramon character came from when you look at the Diamond Stud. And then Sid makes his entrance. And then Elegante makes his entrance. And by the way, there was a stretcher, and I still barely know her. Elegante gathers the stretcher and takes it to the ring. Elegante versus Sid in a stretcher match. How do you win a stretcher match generally? You beat your opponent down, put them on a stretcher, and they get carried across the line. Or something like that. They get put on a stretcher, strapped down, or something like that in the old territory days. Something. That wasn't how this one ended. Sid sold his ass off. This match went 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes. Elegante, just, God was rotten. Apparently a nice guy, super nice guy. Just fucking Christ. He pins him with a claw. Bear in mind, you're supposed to put him on the stretcher to win. But they decided, fuck all the pretense. Sid didn't want to go on a stretcher anyway, because apparently it was softball season. He was also going to WWE soon after this. He would be on the SummerSlam 91 card as a referee, special guest referee, in that handicap match, Match Made in Hell, where Ultimate Warrior held Vince up for money and then got suspended. And by the way, I want to say once again, fuck the Ultimate Warrior. I'm glad he's dead. Elegante won, and then One Man Gang ran in, and along with Kevin Sullivan, and then they tear the stretcher apart and everything, beat up Elegante, they put powder in his eyes, but Elegante, bless him, cannot sell for shit, and there you go. That's what actually, this is something they put on pay-per-view, and I don't fucking understand why. So, we then go to Ron Simmons versus Butch Reed. Thunder Doom cage match. Theodore Arlong in the in a small cage, fitting since he's a small guy, suspended above the ring because the former tag team partners explode, and then Butch Reed was pretty much washed by this point. He had wrestled a hard style. He'd had injuries because of football, I believe, but he also had injuries because of his hard style. And he was 36 by this point? Something like that. I think he was 36. And Ron was obviously going to go over. This was a bit awkward because there was at one point where Theodore Arlong dropped a chain from the cage he was in. A black man dropping the chain to another black man to use on another black man. I see that Ted Turner did not care about that. Wait, it's an international object, not a foreign object. And then Ron ends up hitting the spinebuster anyway, getting the victory 1-2-3. Ron Simmons would then eventually win the WCW Heavyweight Championship about 15 months later. Then the Steiners took on Sting and Luger in a WCW tag title match that had a big fight feel to it, and was one of the few highlights of this long, arduous show. The crowd was into it. It was power versus power. Sting dives outside to a big pop. Luger, I don't know what the hell Luger was trying to do at one point, but he gave himself a side Russian leg sweep because Lex Luger was a fucking idiot. And they kept shooting the stage, telegraphing the fact that we were going to get a run-in. And we got a run-in because Nikita Koloff is just like, but he ends up trying to go for Luger because Luger has the U.S. Championship. Sting pushes Luger out of the way, takes the bump, starts bleeding, and I believe Scott covered 1, 2, 3. You know, the Steiners won, regardless. I mean, it got messy at the end. And then Shivani's backstage with Nikita. Nikita speaking a little bit more English, and then Sting brawls with him, and they brawl outside the arena, because why the fuck not? Bobby Eaton took on Arn Anderson in a WCW TV Championship match. Hey, the late, great Bobby Eaton. That was really, really traumatizing, his passing. Taking on Arn Anderson. How could this match fail? It actually wasn't bad. It wasn't as great, I think, as it could have been, but it was one of the few highlights of the show. Bobby got cheers and very good wrestling. Nice targeting by Arn, focusing on the body part. I did note Dusty continues to make no sense on commentary. Wyndham runs down to try and help Arn, but Pillman stops him, and then Alabama Jam leg drop 1, 2, 3, and there you go. So Bobby Eaton is the new WCW TV champion. I don't think he held it for long, but at least he held it for a bit. That's what matters. They hype up the main event. Fujinami and his cohorts go to the ring. I don't remember who the guy was that was with him. And I recognize him. And I'm really pissed off that I don't recognize, or that the name's escaping me. But they had, Japanese women in the traditional, robes, whatever they call them, doing the sumo stuff, the flowers, doing all this and just, sprinkling them along the stage and whatever. Ric Flair versus Tatsumi Fujinami, NWA and WCW World Title match. So, okay, let's try to unpack this whole thing. They did a weird, dodgy finish thing where WCW is going to lead the NWA. They don't want to acknowledge the NWA, even though the official split wouldn't happen until around the fall of '93. Fujinami had won in a disputed finish or claimed he was a champion. So he had the NWA title and Flair had the WCW title. Or you flip it around. I'm not totally honestly sure, because I don't even think they knew. It had a big fight feel, and it was also Flair's last WCW pay-per-view match, I think, for 2 years. I think so. I think it was 2 years. Bel Alfonso was a U.S. referee. Tiger Hattori, the great Tiger Hattori, was the referee. Recently retired. I think retired in the last couple of years or last year. They were the referees. It had action. It had some good chops. It also was very, very awkward because the crowd didn't care. The crowd didn't give a fuck. Flair bled at one point, obviously, because if it's the day that ends in Y and he's living on this earth, he will be bleeding. There were some submission spots like the Scorpion. There was a figure 4. And Tiger Hattori takes a bump. And then Flair rolls up, uses the tights, and gets the victory after Bel Alfonso counts. And Fujinami's upset, but Flair wins. And then Jim Herd fucks that all up, and Flair leaves soon after this. So hooray! Good on Jim Herd for fucking doing that. That was a pay-per-view that took forever. And if I didn't have to rant about a few things, this review probably wouldn't have gone as long as it did. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.